crowded space. We connect you to a coach who will help you build and grow your marketing business. Our process acts as a guide on how to connect with other businesses, maintain good relations, and establish a presence on the Giver Marketing Network. Each member within this collaborative group will have the opportunity to leverage your talent and influence, a true network effect. If you are looking to collaborate on more projects, welcome to the Giver Marketing Network, the most trusted and highest rated collective of specialists on the planet. Here we have a group of like-minded professionals who focus on making valuable introductions and helping each other grow by teaming up. Imagine Upwork meets a network and a coach. The talent collectively includes services like visibility and SEO, creating logos, designing websites, managing social media, outreach messaging, visual storytelling, and much more. Think of what you could do with laser-focused allies, strengthening your business while offering your talent to the entire network. Click near this video for more information.
Welcome everyone to the Giver Marketing Masterclass. We're about to jump in with Kurt von Ahnen. Ladies and gentlemen, look up his name even now as we're talking. Check out what he's been up to. Look him up on social media. Ask him, start connecting with him. Get ready to ask some questions because we're going to be talking about, Kurt, we're going to be talking about WordPress, one of your favorite topics, yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're so privileged to have you here today. You're one of the Giver Marketing team members and network members. So you're our resident expert when it comes to learning management systems, especially when it relates to WordPress and just how to put your courses together. But listen, I always like to learn about WordPress. You've taught me a lot about WordPress over the years, and we're here to be able to share that knowledge with everybody else that we can. We got some good visuals for you coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Kingdom Warriors University as well. We're here streaming live to help you with all those business and nonprofit decisions that you're going to be making when it comes to your website. Okay, so get your notes out, get ready to ask some questions toward the end, and buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. Kurt is going to be sharing with us he's from Mañana No Mas. So if you see that name flying around with Kurt, that's his business, and so you'll be able to connect with him either personally or through his business as well. Kurt, let's jump into it, man. We'd love to hear a little bit of your story. Can you tell us even ahead of time? I know you have one slide there that talks a little bit about your background, but what's the story behind this story? How did you even get into web design and websites and learning management systems and all these things?
Well, if we go way back, think of like CompuServe times and green screens and blinking cursors and stuff. I just got kind of sucked in with home computing. I thought it was cool, right? And then in the 2000s, early 2000s, man, I locked myself in a room for 30 days and learned Dreamweaver, Macromedia, HTML websites, and it was all a hobby. You know, I was full-time employed in the automotive industry, so it was a hobby. But it wasn't until the financial turndown in 2008 when I was like looking for work and tired of looking for work, and I said, I got to invent work. And that's when I really pursued having my own digital marketing company. And Mañana No Mas was born, and that was that.
Very nice. Well, hey, let's bring up the visuals today, and thanks for sharing a little bit of your background. I know you're going to mention a little bit more too here in a minute, but let's go, man. I'm excited. I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to be a student today, maybe asking a few questions. I'll interrupt you every once in a while, but let's rock and roll, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, Tim, and you know my training style, but for folks that are new that haven't maybe seen me before, I am open and extremely flexible. So if you've got questions, pop them in the chat. If I don't see them, I'm sure that Tim will bring them to my mind, and we'll get things rolling from there. What I would really, really like to do is put everyone just at ease right from the beginning, if we can, Tim. This is like basics for business in regards to WordPress. This is not a college level course. This is not a super deep dive. What this is really is kind of why I specialize in WordPress, why I think other people should consider it, at least for business, and then hopefully break down just some barriers to entry. So that's really what this kind of whole chat was about. If you're wondering where I come from on that whole spectrum, and I don't know why let me try this. There it goes. My clicker wasn't working. So where I come from on this is decades of online experience, both as an agency, but also from the corporate viewpoint. When I worked for companies like Ducati and Suzuki and larger corporations, I had to deal with a lot of web people to get things done. Like when I was building the learning program at Suzuki and working with all the e-learning and running a team of people for all the publications, I had to reach outside to a third-party vendor to get stuff done for our website. And it always seemed hard. It always seemed like there was some kind of obstacle in communication. And with me being a John Maxwell certified leadership and speaker, I was like, I know it can't be my communication. There has to be something wrong on the other end of this thing. And so part of the reason that I like to do the things that I do is I like to really break down those barriers. So why is WordPress hard? I like this question. The only reason that WordPress is hard, in short, is because a lot of people that work in it make it that way. If you think about how people want to communicate what they do for a living, no matter what that is, talk to a doctor. Some doctors don't have the best bedside manner. They come at you with all kinds of technical terms and you have to go, give it to me straight, doc. Am I going to live or die? And they're like, oh crap, no, you just have a cold. It's that level of complexity that we put into things. So in short, people that work in the WordPress space have a habit of making it more difficult just through the language that they use. We confuse people with development talk or design chatter. We start talking about white spaces and margins and padding, and people that don't work in design for a living, they get kind of put back a little bit. So I want to help break that down. If we talk about what people don't understand, I think when it comes to the internet, maybe people just don't really understand the structure, the building blocks of how something is made. A lot of times when I'm talking to clients about their websites, I'll talk about how a house is built. I'll say, you have the foundation, the framing, the electrical, the plumbing, and so maybe you need a web guy to help you with the foundation, but you want to take care of the drywall, the paint, and the drapes, making it look pretty on the inside. And so there's all kinds of ways to break this down. Tim, you and I were talking before the show, and I was saying one of the things that helped me as I used to train technicians how to diagnose motorcycles, electrical systems on motorcycles. And I always had a hard time trying to explain to a new technician how electricity works. I mean, it's like I could say, here's the multimeter, here's the book, here's the service manual, read this, read that, why don't you understand this? And then I overheard another instructor once who was tutoring a student, and he just said, hey, do you know what a stator is? Do you know what this is? Do you know what that is? And they pulled those parts out, and he said, this is a chunk of metal. And every time this chunk of metal spins and makes a rotation, it goes past a magnet. And every time that chunk of metal goes past the magnet, it creates a charge because a magnet is positive and negative, and it makes the charge go back and forth on the magnet every time the chunk of metal goes by. Him just saying that one little thing changed the entire way that I train technicians how to diagnose electrical problems moving forward, because it was like that linchpin. It was like, here's that one gold nugget that helped me unlock an entire way to talk about something. I got a gold nugget coming up for you in the end that's hopefully going to make working in WordPress just that much easier to understand. And then maybe you'll go, oh, well, now I know what plugins do, or now I know what a page builder does. And it'll take away some of that confusing professional talk that people put on their sites. So stick with us. We're gonna plow through and knock some stuff out. If we were to talk about me for a little bit, which honestly I'm not that comfortable with, we'll go quickly. We already talked about me starting Mañana No Mas in 2008. So if you're saying, well, how long has Kurt been around, or why does this guy qualify to do this talk? Well, this is kind of it. I played in the entrepreneur space for a long time. I helped a lot of startups get launched, with their online entry-level websites. Got that done working with the Economic Development Center in the south part of Albuquerque. And then what I disliked most about the tech field was just how people presented the work that they did. Once I became pretty good at working on the internet, and I still had to use third-party people to do stuff for corporate, one of the things that would really, really bother me, that would really, really just get in my craw and kill me, was I'd call up, I'd say, hey, I found a typographical error on this page. I need to have this changed. And then they would say, okay, well, let me put together a change order. We can get to that the Thursday after next, and I knew, and then Tim, you're not even smiling yet, but they could have signed right in. They could have made that change in 48 seconds. Right. And instead they're saying, well, we're going to have to put that in front of a developer, and we're going to have to this, that, and the other thing, and change the HTML H1 codes and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, no, you're going to hit delete and type. You're fixing a typo. And that used to drive me crazy. And so now that I am the agency and I have the ability to pick the other power partners that I work with, I only work with friendly, straightforward, straight talking WordPress professionals. And so when a client comes to us and says, hey, I need A, B, and C, we just go, okay, A, B, and C, that's going to take about this much time. It's going to cost about that much. Do you want to have it done by Tuesday? And they're like, people freak out because people aren't used to that kind of communication. The good news is this: I think more and more people are starting to operate that way. So I think that more and more people are getting transparent about what they do online. So I think it's getting better. So let's get back to talking about you. Can we talk about you for a bit? You might have a website, or you might have an idea for a website. I should state that. I get folks that have lots of ideas. The thing you got to think of first is, what's your use case? This determines the entire flow for what you're going to do next. So look, like, you could have a simple, like, electronic business card. You could have a simple one-page type of website that maybe has a couple of sections in it, right? What services do you want to offer? A little bit about you, maybe a join my newsletter or contact me thing, and a little form. That could be it. You could break that out into pages. You could put it on one page. We're not talking about design yet. We're just talking about use case. What do you want the internet to do for you? That's use case. So simple blogging website. Maybe you want to put up a new article once a week, or you want to make a newsletter once a month, or you want to do something like that. That's a simple blogging website. That's like entry level. So simple and pretty. Just think simple and pretty, right? The next step, you want to be a guru or an author, like speaker, author, coach. You might want to have an online course, right? Like, I've got a project where I wrote and published a book, and then I've got 3 courses that go with that book. So am I going to make a lot of money selling books? No. Am I going to make a lot of money giving away that free course? Probably no. But is there a chance that people are going to subscribe, maybe become part of that community, right? And start to do the courses in the community, and maybe I'll get picked up for some public speaking. Yes, that could generate revenue. So that's kind of the guru author setup, right?
Kurt, can you speak to that, kind of some of these differences with maybe one more example? Like, you just gave an example, a really good one, of how you've used kind of that author, speaker, coach deal, or that kind of that section or that particular use case. Can you give an example of maybe another client that you've worked with that falls into one of these 3 categories?
Oh yeah. One of my best projects. I really enjoyed this project, and I don't think she'll mind if I say it out loud. So I'll say it out loud. The first time I met her, she said, and she knows my background. So she goes, well, I'm an atheist. Is this going to be a problem? And I was like, I used to be a youth pastor. I'm sure we can figure it out. I'll pray for you. And we ended up becoming the best of friends. But her project, her and her partner, it was like a Eastern philosophies kind of studio, right? So think yoga, chanting, mandalas, and peace and tranquility. And during the pandemic, people couldn't come to their studio, and so that became like, well, how do we make this happen online, right? And so it became kind of a whole strategy session, a use case session on, okay, how do we convert people from live space to virtual space? How do we give people access to recorded evergreen? Evergreen means last forever, right? So how do we give people access to evergreen type material? But then how do we also give them that, like, in-person face-to-face experience, even though the pandemic says we can't be in a face-to-face experience?
Sure.
Right. So that became a very specific use case. And in that situation, we started out with the guru author kind of thing, and then we peppered in the ability to do live sessions on their website. So they were able to do the live sessions for the face-to-face. They were able to have the evergreen content as their e-learning stuff. But then, Tim, they went one step further. They went to the last one I say, it's the powerhouse, right? They went to the e-commerce example, because then they were like, well, wait a minute. Now that we're online, people might want to buy a tapestry with a mandala on it, or a tote bag, or a coffee mug, or a something. And next thing you know, they had the e-commerce powerhouse site where they had the courses, the membership, and all of that. I mean, if we're going to be direct, I mean, Giver Marketing is a beautiful example of, growth through community, right? And so if we think about Giver Marketing and kind of how that, people look at you, Timothy, and they go, well, how did you put together this group of people? How did this happen? Well, Tim's awesome and he's dynamic, so he brings these people together. But as far as holding it together, it's a combination of tools online like Facebook and stuff like that, but also having the Giver Marketing website that kind of puts everything together in a hub. And I know that we're working on some stuff in the background to add some features to that. So
yeah, we're big fans of WordPress, thanks to you and a few others in the team. I love the way you broke this down, Kurt. It's just very helpful for those who are maybe just starting out and just want to get some information out there. And then there's the middle one where you're becoming more of that authority. You're kind of building a community, and it's starting to kind of build some momentum there for you. And then if you want folks to buy stuff online, you got to get into the big boy and girl conversations about how to make this happen. So thank you for breaking that down, Kurt. Appreciate it.
No worries. And to be honest, Tim, this is where the most confusion happens. This phase, this is where people get distracted. So you're going to talk about use case. You're going to go to a BNI meeting. You're going to go to some networking thing, and 5 other professionals are going to say, oh, no, man, I set mine up on Wix. I'm on Squarespace. I have an online site. I went through Kajabi. I'm going to do a Udemy course. I'm going to, you've got Sam Cart putting up ads all over the internet saying you can become a millionaire with an online course. And realistically, I'm in the e-learning business. I'll tell you that becoming a millionaire through an online course, that's a coin toss for sure. It takes a lot of work. What I've found, and this is just me talking, Timothy, I found personally, I want to own my platform. I want to own my material. I don't want to rent space on Kajabi. I want to be in control of my users that come to my platform. I want to be able to take those users and put them into my CRM. I want to have control over how I communicate with people. And here's another one, because we're going to talk about hosting a little bit later. I want to have the freedom to be able to move my product whenever I want to move it. Like if I'm not comfortable where something is, I want to say, okay, well, I'm going to just move it and put it over here. Which if I'm locked in a Kajabi example or locked in a ClickFunnels example, I don't get that ability or that freedom and flexibility to move and morph things or grow things as I want, because I'm in their systems. Whereas with WordPress, you have the flexibility to expand at any rate. And let's just call that out for what it is. Some people will say, oh, I heard WordPress wasn't secure. That's the statement from 14 years ago, right? There's been so many advances in security and stuff like that. Like WordPress is much more secure than it's ever been. And then people will talk about scalability. We have someone in our learning clientele that has over 1 million users. So if you've got a business that's going to bring in over 1 million dynamic active users, then we need to have a conversation about how to host it and stability. But WordPress will handle it. It'll do it, right? So take that right off the table. But use case is a big one, because it's where you can start to get distracted, and it's a good time to get distracted because you haven't done the work yet. So do your study before you start touching your keyboard. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is picking your services. Once you have your use case, I just want a simple website. I just want to have an online course. I want to have a full-blown store with courses and membership. Once you get that ironed out, now you can start thinking about what's the strategy? How am I going to put this together? Now, you can do it yourself or you can get help, right? And so these are the ways to talk about this. So hosting is super, super important. It's one of the first things to consider. If you start searching out hosts, you're going to get distracted by who pays the most for advertising on the internet, right? And they're not always the best. So what you want to do is you want to consult inside your networks. You want to talk to people that you already know that are in business. You want to reach out to a professional that you trust, but you want to get the right host. Hosting can be $10, $15, $20 a month. It can be hundreds of dollars per month. And there's a lot of cases where I'll meet with a client that's on a $250 a month hosting plan. And I'll look at their traffic and I'll look at their use case and I'll say, whoa, we can knock this down to $50 a month and you're still going to get great service, right? But it's a matter of picking the right host that gives you the services to match your use case, okay? And the next thing to talk about is a tech stack. Sounds techie, right? The tech stack is just, what are the tools you want to put in the back of this website? So if you want to have online courses, you're probably going to look at Lifter LMS or LearnDash or Tutor LMS or something like that. I personally am a big fan of Lifter LMS, but I've used these other tools as well. Picking that plugin becomes part of the tech stack, right? And so knowing that the tech stack is just the number of plugins in the back of your website kind of puts you at ease to go, okay, well, what tools do I need? So do you need membership? Do you need online courses? Are you going to do any kind of social plugins? Like, do you want your post to automatically go to Facebook, automatically post to Twitter, all those things? Do you want to sell stuff? Do you want to build a CRM in the back of your website where you can like build a list of users? Because if we're in business, we know that building your list is one of the most valuable things that you can do. So your website can help you build your list, right? But that's all part of the tech stack. What do you want the website to do? The next thing, number 3, is figure out how much help you need and where to get that help. So WordPress consultants, we're everywhere. We're a dime a dozen. So finding the right one, it can be a little bit of a mess, a little bit of a pool to wade through. So again, look at referrals, look at organizations you trust, contact folks like Giver Marketing, jump into WordPress meetup groups. If you've never used the meetup application before, WordPress is big in the meetup space. I started working in WordPress in 2004, and I didn't really get into the community until I went to WordCamp just over a year ago. And so I started getting exposed to what they're actually doing in these WordCamps and these WordPress meetups. And it's amazing. Like, somebody can sign in as a visitor and say, I'm having a problem with my website. And 5 dudes that are professionals in WordPress will screen share with you on a Zoom call and fix your website and not charge you a dime. Like, that is amazing to know that that's out there. So have a pro on standby, have a power partner that you can call on when things pop up. And if you're a DIY kind of person, you like doing your own research and stuff, that's cool. But it's always good to have someone to bounce something off of to get some feedback. Me and Tim, we coordinate a lot on feedback back and forth, him and I've got 5 or 6 other professionals in the field that I use for feedback. I might think I know what I'm doing, but sometimes I like to run it by somebody just to make sure I'm not crazy, right? So that's the first 3. The next one we want to talk about is how to select that right host. I mentioned that as number 1 the last time, and I thought it deserved its own slide. So if you look at the bullets, it's going to say use case. We already talked about that. So what is the specific use case? How many people do you know in your circles that use that product, use that vendor, right? It's not always best to be the first one to dive in on something, right? It's like buying the first year of a new car model. Pricing's a big one. You don't always get what you pay for. So you want to make sure that you kind of compare apples and apples and oranges, right? So you want to take a look at that and know what you're paying for. Ease of use is a big one. Some hosts have control panels, and those control panels are graphic, and you can kind of pick and choose the things that you want to work with within your hosting. Like, do you want to set up a new email account? Do you want to add a new plugin? It's very graphical, very easy. Others are more manual, where you actually have to go into like the file structure and add things. And so you want to know that before you sign up on a contract. The next one is customer service. Whether you have a question or not, if you're looking at a host, call them or send them the chat if you prefer to use the chat thing. But go to their website, find out which way they communicate with customers, see if that matches your preferred method of communication, and then send them a fake question and see how good they do at answering that fake question. Trust me, you will be surprised over who has good customer service and who doesn't. Because, like I said, Google ranks people by how much money they pay for ads, not necessarily on how well they perform. So you want to give everybody kind of that test, okay? And then commitment to WordPress. WordPress does operate differently. The way that WordPress works in PHP is the code that it's written in. it does work differently than, say, a standard HTML website. So to have some really cool, great bargain hosting on some platform, yeah, it's a great start. But when you have a WordPress specific problem and you contact their customer service, they might not have the best way to help you because they might not be focused on WordPress. The big phrase online you'll see is WordPress managed hosting. So if it's WordPress managed hosting, that's kind of the product that you want to go with. All right. Hosting, you got the easy button. This is a shameless plug for me. This is the Mañana No Mas screenshot. Some hosts make it really, really easy. What's your use case? I got a package for that. Do you want to subscribe to it? And then you get a templated website with those tools already put in place, and it's ready to go for whatever that subscription price is. So for as low as, $40 a month, you say, I want a simple website. I want a simple blogging website, and I just want this template. Great. Well, here's the tools, the tech stack, the template. All you got to do is change the text and images. You're good to go. So that's the easy button, right? That's like the first example of getting started on a DIY case. Next is tons of choices. I use WP Tonic as an example in this one. And I kind of put up that giant screenshot on the right on purpose. I wanted to show you just how much choice you have. This hosting comes as low as $35 a month. And when you sign up with WP Tonic, you get the white glove experience, meaning they check your use case, they find out what you want out of the tech stack in the site, and then they assemble that site for you on a template. So it's kind of a really great value. But if you look at that screenshot on the right, that's 4 different packages that you can choose from. And each of those packages has a giant list of plugins that you choose from. So the first example was like, what's your use case? Here's your package, right? This one's like, what's your use case? Now, which plugins would you like in your stack? So it's that next level of more DIY decision making, right? Like how many more choices do you want to make? The next one in the series is more like a DIY setup, doing it yourself. So if you say, hey, Kurt made it sound really simple, I think I could build my own WordPress website. You can jump on and start from scratch, DIY. Some really good examples for great hosting is WP Engine, Cloudways, anything with DigitalOcean is great. GridPane, fantastic people. I actually forgot Rocket.net. Rocket.net is amazing, super, super fast hosting. But all of these companies, they have WordPress managed hosting, meaning you get the account and they say, here's your sandbox website, right? So here's your website, and it'll be a blank canvas of WordPress. And then you have to figure out like, what plugins do I want? What theme do I want? Do I want to use a template? And then you're adding all that stuff yourself, basically from scratch. But it's a really great sound way to go. If you have the ability to do it and the desire to learn it, it's a great way to go. All right. We can go back to making things easy, Tim. All right. So if we think about how WordPress is easy, and I want to go back to the beginning of all this. I said there's Wix, there's Squarespace, there's Udemy, there's Kajabi. Remember, these aren't plug and play products. All of them have a learning curve. When you sign up for Kajabi, you got to learn how Kajabi works. When you sign up for Wix, you got to learn how Wix works, okay? So when you sign up for WordPress, there is going to be a learning curve, but I want to make it as easy as possible and give you the best pitch I can for WordPress, okay? So making it easy. WordPress is open source. You hear that term a lot, open source, open source. What does it mean? Well, the code word for open source is it's free, right? So the whole platform is free and the community is awesome. Like I said, WordPress meetups, WordCamps. There's just so many support mechanisms for people that work in WordPress, okay? Next thing is, and this is that thing I was telling you about, like with the magnet on the spinning piece of metal, right? WordPress is all pages or it's post types. There's really only 2 ways that WordPress is put together. So everything in WordPress is either a static page that holds the content you put on it, like a home page or an about page, a contact page. So pages. The other thing is post type. I only very recently heard it put this simply. And when I heard it, it was like an immediate button that went off. And I went, oh my goodness, that's how plugins work. And I've been doing this a long time. So I'm sharing something with you that I just learned. The simplicity of it. It's all pages or post types. So if I have a learning management system, that sounds technical. If I have a learning management system and I add that to my website, all that's doing is adding a custom post type to the back of my website that will add those pages to a database. Now, the pages in your website, they're pulling a query that basically adds that data dynamically, right? Dynamically means based on whatever's asked at that moment. So pages or post types. So when you're looking at a plugin for added functionality, all that plugin is doing is just figuring out a way to use a custom post type to add content to your website, right? So hopefully that clears. Once I heard that, Tim, I'm telling you, my mind just cleared instantly. I was like, that makes picking plugins that much easier. So plugins add function, right? So WordPress, it's a blessing and it's a curse. If you look at that bullet point, there's over 60,000 plugins out there to choose from. To be honest, I think that's probably the most value that I bring to a client, is helping them sift through all of that junk and going, okay, for your use case, you need these 5 plugins, right? Because there's 60,000 to choose from. So if you got that much choice, it's like shopping for a computer at Best Buy. If you don't know what you're looking for, you walk in, you just start getting distracted, you get frustrated, you have no idea what you're paying for, and you end up leaving without a box. That'll happen with WordPress. You open up the repository, there's 60,000 things, and you get lost. And next will be themes versus page builders. You're going to see this a lot. You'll start putting your website together and you'll be like, oh, someone says I need to pick a theme. And you go to like Elegant Themes or iThemes or something on the internet. You go to pick a theme and you'll see a sample website that looks beautiful. And then you download the theme and you put it in your site and there's nothing there. And then you go back and you look at the theme sample and it looks beautiful. And then you go back to your site and nothing's there. And you're like, what did I do wrong? You didn't do nothing wrong. That's what a theme is. A theme basically takes care of, I'll just call it global settings. It's like what type of font and weight is used for the headers, what type of border goes around the pictures, what type of dividers get used inside the sections of the website. And so your theme covers that, and page builders. So there's the block theme that comes with WordPress. There's Elementor, there's Divi, there's Beaver Builder. There's all these things that call page builders. They are kind of like graphical ways of adding content inside the themes. So it's not a question of themes versus page builders. It's very much a thing of themes and page builders. And so there's a couple of premium themes out there, even no charge themes. When I say premium, I mean that they work well. Some really good choices. If you ever want to run that by me, just hit me with a message and I'll let you know if I think you got a good one in your pocket or not. I've got like 5 that are my go-tos, right? Custom versus a starter site. Another great question. People always think they need something custom. Those of us in the marketing side of the business, we know not everything needs to be custom. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you want to do something. There's a template. There's a best use case. There's a best practices way to go with things. And so thinking in terms of a starter site versus a custom build, sometimes it's best just to use the template, change out the text and the images and get your product online. If you are a business, then you're a higher end business, medium to large business, and you've had professional marketing work done with a style guide and fonts and hex codes for colors, and you've had like a PDF mock-up of a website done. If you've had that done, well, then, yeah, you're a custom website. It's actually faster to take that custom example, to take that working example from PDF or Figma and build a custom site that way than it is to try and modify a template that way. So in that case, you'd be a custom candidate. But if you don't have all that and you just have an idea for a website, maybe a logo and a couple of strips of text, well, then you want to try and focus on finding a template that meets your use case and makes it easier for you to go.
Is it easy to go from a template to more custom solution later? Is that okay? I mean, is that cool for people to do it that way?
You can, Tim, but I find that it's kind of an either or situation. I guess it depends on the way your brain's wired, right? But sometimes when you have a template in place, that template is it's kind of like, you ever download a template for Word when you're using Microsoft Office, and then you're like, I'm just going to pound this out real quick. And then it's got like invisible lines and blocks and tables in it. And you're trying to resize the text to fit a certain block, and the block starts doing weird stuff. That'll happen with a template sometimes, and it can be frustrating.
Okay.
Right. And so you want to know, you want to know your potential pitfalls and speed bumps going in. So a lot of times what I'll do is, if someone says, hey, I want to take this page out of my template and customize it, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go back to the page builder in item 4, and I'll actually add sections to the bottom of that page, and I'll kind of duplicate the page, right? And then I can just add to it or change it. And then I go back to the top and I delete the top of the page and have that bottom part. So it ends up being full custom, but it uses elements from the template.
You got it. You bring the content over and just make sure that it's going to work right. At the end of the day, that's all most people care about, is that it looks right and that the content isn't looking, it's not wonky in some way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay. And there's, the goal was to keep this easy, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, because you brought it up, and I want to make sure I cover this. All of these tools that we had, tech stack, themes, page builders, all of these things that we put in the back of a website, they create a demand on the server, right? So all of those things create a drain. They can slow the website down. And so there's like a big argument in the space right now about, a lot of folks use Elementor as a page builder. It's kind of like one of those standard tech stack items. I use Elementor on a lot of my projects, but they'll say, no, you should use the Gutenberg, WordPress block builder because it's faster. It doesn't weigh the site down as much. When you use templates and then try to customize a template, if you don't do a good job of deleting that templated code, it adds to the site, and it can help slow things down. I'm talking milliseconds, right? But in the grand scheme of things, some of your website in regards to SEO and stuff like that, it's judged on page speed. And so you really want to make sure that if you remove anything from your website, you want to make sure you clean it up the best that you can.
Thank you.
No worries. I just want to make sure I give a full answer. The next thing, and I said this before, but it bears repeating, is hiring the right team. In business, it's so important who you associate with, who you affiliate with, who brings what skills to what table. Maybe do it yourself isn't for you. Maybe you want to hire someone for the whole project. I encourage you to reach out to a provider that consults you on use case and discusses what success looks like to you. And then we'll make a commitment to a timeline and a budget. So, the whole reason that I have the name that I have for business is because I've never, ever missed a deadline or gone over budget. If I miscalculate something as part of the quote, I just take it on as a loss, to be honest with you, because I should have done the research up front. I should have done the use case better. I should have done whatever that is. And so if you're going to partner with somebody, especially in the web space, you want to make sure that you work with someone who outlines the expectations very clearly and that you understand the scope of work that you've signed up for. Because what will happen with a lot of folks, especially if they don't have a lot of experience in the web building space, if they're new to the agency life, is they'll say, yeah, I can build you a 5-page website. Yeah, you got some pictures and some text. That's great. And then, yeah, I can do that for $1,200, $1,500, $1,800, whatever that is. You pay them and off they go. And then what you get back in return is like, well, that's not what I thought it was going to look like. Or I thought it was going to have a contact form. Or I thought I was going to put my Google map on the contact page. Or I thought, and then you go back to them and they're like, well, I didn't say I would do that. I didn't say I would do that. And that's that break in expectation. So to me, if you're going to have a project you want to put online, it's really important that you find a provider that takes the time, that goes over what's your use case, what does success look like for you and your project, and then how can I give you a budget and a timeline that matches your use case and your needs. All right. And sometimes that provider might hit the first two or three things, and maybe they miss something. If it's not a good alignment, maybe it's just not the right time. Maybe you come back to them 2, 3, 4 months later when you're more prepared. But getting the right person to help you with the project is so key to having it go well.
Can people reach out to you, Kurt, and just like ask you a bunch of questions so they can be prepared? Is that cool if they do that?
I'm totally cool with that. This is actually the screen that goes for that message. So your timing is perfect. Tim, I've known you for years now, right? It's kind of hard to think about how much time's passed, but I love giver marketing, and anyone that contacts me with giver marketing in the subject line. So if you go to manananomas.com and you put in a contact form there and you put giver marketing, boom, free 30 minutes, no problem, no questions, nothing. There should be a link going out, a bit.ly book with Kurt link coming out. It was at the bottom of the banner earlier, but absolutely book that 30 minutes with me. And I enjoy it. So I don't want you to think that you're taking me out or anything like that. Trust me, I'm not going to book time that I don't have. Right. But if you can find that moment on my schedule, take that 30 minutes. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to talk about your use case and answer your questions. And I got no problem referring other people in the industry or stuff like that. No one's stealing my piece of the pie, right? We just bake more pie. That's what this whole thing's about. So feel free to reach out, email Kurt@manananomas.com. The manananomas.com website kind of gives an outline of my core projects in regards to, the WordPress lifestyle. And then, dude, you got me fired up on LinkedIn years ago, and that seems to be my go-to for social. So I am the only Kurt Von Ahnen on LinkedIn. When you find Kurt Von Ahnen on LinkedIn, you got the right one.
I love that. That's fun.
yeah, we'll hook up on LinkedIn Messenger. I typically connect with folks, and then we'll do a meet and greet anyway, just to kind of get to know each other, because I like to know who I'm connected to and find out what's going on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
got some questions.
Take a picture of that screen right there before it goes away in 3, 2, 1, or rewind this video if you're watching the replay. All right. Well, Kurt, thank you for dropping some like categories and hints and tips and those kind of things. We're going to go into question and answer time. I know that Joel is with us. Christine is with us. I have some questions. There's some people that have been dropping questions in the comments on our social feeds just because we're live here. But at the end of the day, we just want to kind of ask you some deeper questions. So we're super excited. Christine and Joel, are you ready to rock the house? Okay, let's do this. All right. First of all, Christine, what questions do we have from the comments in the social feeds? Keep those coming, ladies and gentlemen. We might have time for those toward the end as well.
Well, they're loving lots of feedback about how nice and easy you're making this to understand, because, oh my goodness, right? It can be overwhelming. Oh, we've got a question right here. Let's pop this one in. So Mobilist Cruise is asking, any advice for someone with a dinosaur self-hosted LAMP website on modernizing with WordPress, and specific one that was made in-house?
Yeah, my advice there, and sometimes people don't like this piece of advice. So Mobilist, please don't be too critical of me, but in situations where someone comes to me with a legacy type platform, a legacy product, typically I like to do a needs assessment, a use case where I'll sign in as an administrator, look at the back end and see just how much content is there? How much stuff would there be to move? How much, what databases are here? What like just get an overall feel for the project. And I'm speaking about any kind of like legacy thing I look at that's been online for a decade or something like that. The next piece of advice I have is simplify. So many business owners I talk to think their tech stack has to be huge and all these integrations have to be done. But for their use case, simplicity is going to be gold. And so a really clean theme like Astra or Cadence in the WordPress form. And if you don't know the words I'm saying, you can look at the replay and type them out on Google, right? But Astra is a great theme, super clean, super light, super fast. And I would just say, well, how do you get your content, your material, how do you transfer that best to the WordPress platform? In a lot of cases, you can do an import-export exercise, and you can export stuff as, as documents, right? So sometimes it's a JSON file. There's all kinds of ways to do it. Sometimes you can export it almost like a Word, right? And then you can just kind of import that into the new WordPress example. Once you get it into the new site, you want to go through and you want to go make sure that the presentation is right, that the spacing's right, that paragraphs are where paragraphs are, headings are where headings are, and things like that. But to me, simple and lightweight is the best way to go. And I always build that in a sandbox, not on a live site. So leave your existing site live, leave the dinosaur running, right? So everyone sees the dinosaur, build on the sandbox. And when the sandbox is right where you want it to be, then you're going to go back into the server and you're basically just going to change the address. So you're going to say, hey, instead of sending my mail to this address, I want to send my mail to this address. And everything will port over to the new site and you'll be good.
Love it. Christine, any other questions or comments that were kind of worth mentioning?
Oh, let's see. One of our Facebook users said, definitely need a pro like Kurt. Get your time and mind share back. Which is really true, right? Mind share, right? Where are you putting your mind and your energy, right?
Yeah. There was one I saw in the comments about using Bluehost, and I didn't mention Bluehost in the talk. And so I want to give them a fair shake. It says, I'm currently using WordPress on Bluehost, and so far it's worked well. Yes, Bluehost works awesome. I was on Bluehost for like 16 years. So I'm not going to talk smack about them. Where I get lost is a lot of these hosting companies, and I just want to prepare you for this. They'll say, hey, you can get started for $250 a month. You can get started for $395 a month. You'll see the ads. Just keep in mind, that's an introductory rate. And when that anniversary comes around, your credit card that you put on auto bill is going to be $15 a month. That's going to be charged a year in advance. And so sometimes some of these services that seem so affordable end up having a surprise on the back end. And you just want to make sure that you know what those are before you do it. Bluehost is one of those hosts that has the control panel I mentioned, has really easy installations, has really easy management. You can do unlimited URLs, unlimited emails. In that term, it's really great. As your projects expand, so I'll be more clear. This is another gold nugget for folks. If you're on a proof of concept idea, right? So you don't have any traffic, it's a new idea, it's just a proof of concept. Bluehost is a great option for that because you're not paying a premium fee for hosting and you're able to sample your new product before it grows. Now, once it grows, once it picks up traffic and gets traction, then you might want to migrate it to a more premium host that deals with traffic and bandwidth a little better.
Great. Good topics and questions, and keep them coming, ladies and gentlemen, because Kurt's going to circle back and answer more of those questions too.
Oh, somebody had to throw Divi out there. Ben, someone knows me from my other life. Divi's not one of my favorite things. So, but Divi is a page builder. So, like I said, there's Elementor, there's Divi, there's all these different Beaver Builder. There's just a ton of them. There's a ton, and those are the big ones. Divi is a cult followed page builder, man. People, once they get into it, they are into it. Now in full transparency, I had a client that needed a plugin, and that plugin came with a bunch of Divi tools, and I bought the lifetime license because I'm a glutton for punishment, and I've decided to dive in on the Divi side a little bit and start playing with Divi myself. Tim, you know that I work with Lifter LMS on a lot of things. A lot of people in the Lifter LMS space use Divi. And Melissa Love is a very, very famous person in the Divi space out of the UK. And she has Divi training. She makes themes. She does all kinds of cool stuff. So if you are watching this and you're in the Divi space, but you want a little more guidance on design and appearance and features, look up Melissa Love from the UK. She is phenomenal.
Good tip.
I'm going to write that down because I have to admit I'm a Divi fan. So I'm writing her down.
She is phenomenal. My understanding is that, they changed their user interface and stuff quite a bit. I just used it last week, and I have to say, I remember using it before, and then I used it last week on a client's website, and it was just so much more clean, so much easier, so much. I don't want to say it was Elementor-esque because it was actually a little cleaner than Elementor, and just having that big open workspace and being able to add the elements that you want to add. It did really well.
Well, speaking of Elementor, Nelson is asking about what about Elementor AI coming soon? I know we've been talking about AI off and on here with Giver Marketing.
I like Nelson already because he apparently went to Imagine and had his headshot done on AI imagery as well. I'm a big fan of the AI images. I'm also somewhat of a fan of AI in the idea that it's a great tool. It creates a lot of great seeds to build from. I have found and this is just me being, maybe my political side is going to come out. I want to be careful how I say it. I have found a lot of biases with AI. And so while I think it's great and informative, I don't want to let it form my opinions on things. But it is great for resourcing facts and getting the starter content done. I haven't worked much with, I've heard about this Elementor AI coming. I have not had a chance to play with that yet. I did do a review of 22 different AI products on the WP Tonic podcast 2 weeks ago. So you would see that review there. We covered 22 different AI products, anything from artificial intelligence on SEO, search engine optimization, blog writing, finding the best title, writing your emails, running your CRM. It was a really informative podcast. So if you are attracted to AI items, even if you don't watch the whole show, just go to the notes and you can pull all the links out of there and do your own research on those links, give you a good head start. Nelson says he agrees.
He'll give you the link to that show. That'll be good. Any other questions, Christine, that either you have or anybody in the audience has?
Well, someone's got a great one in here. It says Bluehost didn't serve my multimedia WordPress site very fast, even with the business plan. Their ratings for WordPress speed aren't the best, and I know Hostinger really liked the speed and budget of it. There are some limitations, and I want to make sure that I'm clear with this. If you have a WordPress-based website, and so the multimedia thing is what got me. You don't want to try and host video inside a WordPress site. You want the video to be hosted somewhere else, and then you embed the video into the site. So that's a thing, because you could see that. You could see, well, I can go to my media bin and I can upload images and audio and video, and yeah, you can. But the way that the internet works, like I said, WordPress is hosted differently. The video is not going to stream through your website. Right? It's almost going to be like downloaded and then played. And so if you think about it in those terms, it's much better to host your video on YouTube, Wistia, Vimeo. I use a product called Adillo. There's a thing called bunny.net. Bunny.net is super affordable, and it works really good with a thing called Presto Player, which makes the video basically act like it's in your media bin, makes it really easy to manipulate, manage the files, and look at the analytics from the videos. But it's actually hosted on bunny.net, which is, a premium video hosting service. So yeah, if you have a multimedia WordPress site and it's operating slowly, chances are you have the wrong content on your WordPress site.
Nice. Christine, anything else on your end?
Let's see. Some of your favorite plugins. Do you have some favorite plugins that you think just about every website has to have this?
So I have a tech stack, and I primarily focus on membership and learning websites. So people need to kind of understand that up front, right? So Lifter LMS is by far one of the best for me because it does membership and learning content. So there's other learning content plugins out there, but then you need a membership plugin, you need a payment gateway, you need those things to kind of give it that full website punch. With Lifter LMS, I get the membership and the learning tools right out of the box, and I can put the payment gateway in. I can put in social learning. I can give people a Facebook-like experience inside my website. There's a groups feature for bulk selling. I mean, just all kinds of things I can do with Lifter. So for me, and my use case, I go back to use case, that whole slide with what are you going to do, right? So for my use case, Lifter is one of my big ones. If I'm going to sell any hard products, if I'm going to sell coffee mugs, tapestries, books, book bags, then I'm going to have WooCommerce in the back end as my payment gateway. And then I'm going to use WooCommerce to do the whole storefront. And I'm going to integrate that with Lifter LMS to sell the courses and things like that. Okay. So Lifter and WooCommerce kind of go together. When it comes to managing people and user lists, I got two that I go to. I'm a big Groundhog fan. I've been with Groundhog for years. In fact, I just re-upped and signed up for another 3 years with Groundhog. So I like Groundhog a lot. It allows me to have automations, sales funnels, newsletters, emails. I mean, Tim, I sent out an email about this show today to 4,000 people yesterday, right through my website. And it's really cool because everything that I do, if it's part of my website, it uses that root URL as part of my branding package too. So it's not like going through MailChimp or going through some other third party. It's going through Mañana No Mas. It comes through as that Groundhog Mail. So I'm a big fan of those. Those are big three right out of the chute, right? Lifter LMS, Groundhog, Fluent CRM is another one, right? WooCommerce. Fluent CRM is like Groundhog, but it's for people that don't want to deal with, they want a different user interface. Fluent is a little more, I think, direct. It doesn't have as many options or as many distractions as Groundhog, and sometimes it helps people stay more focused.
It's good. Good tips. Joel, do you have anything for Kurt today? Any questions, any comments, anything that would inform the conversation?
Yeah, I think big question for me is dealing in e-commerce. We use a lot of Google Ads and Merchant Center and so on. And so we're currently in the middle of a large e-commerce project, and noticed that WooCommerce doesn't talk to Google Merchant Center in quite the same way as Google Merchant Center listens to the feed. So I don't know if you have any tips on that.
I got a great tip for you, Joel. One is, obviously there's a thing called APIs. APIs is kind of like the digital handshake that different programs can have. And in a lot of cases, you can really go through all of these plugins have a developer channel, right? And so if you get in touch with the developer team or the developer Slack channel for that product, a lot of times you'll find out that there's a script or a code or something that can be added, or something that you connect to in the handshake through the API to kind of map it correctly. The other thing that I want to share with folks is there is a great company out there. If that API or handshake doesn't exist, there's a company called Codeable, Codeable, Codeable. That is a giant team of WordPress professionals. It's almost like a Fiverr or a WeWork, but it's like professional. Like it's like a real deal. Codeable has a great service where they can custom map or build you a plugin or help you with just about anything in your WordPress website. And they're, I hate to say super affordable, and I'll be transparent because I love you guys. Their hourly rate is less than my hourly rate. And they'll find the right professional to get you the right results. They do a call, and then they have a platform where you put in the job, the request, and then it's a bidding process. But only 3 or 5 people can bid, and then you pay the average of the bids. So you don't get to pick the cheapest or the most expensive. That people bid, and then you pay the average of the bids, and you select the one that you want. It's a really cool system.
Wow, I love it. Well, I was just thinking some of the favorite features when I first started playing with WordPress, the little ones the plugins that duplicate. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh, where have you been all my life? Why didn't somebody tell me about this? Right? There's little things that just make your life a little bit easier.
So much. There's one called user switcher. And picture this, you're trying to manage a website and you got all these members, and then people are always like, well, I signed in and my website doesn't, my account doesn't have this, or my account doesn't, or I don't see this button. You just go, okay, hold on. And you just go right to the users list. You go switch user, and you impersonate, you become that user, right? And you go to the page and you go, well, I'm in here as you right now, and I see that button at the bottom left-hand side of my screen. And they go, oh, there it is. Right? I can't tell you how many times that happens, but having the ability to impersonate users helps the troubleshooting so much.
That's nice. Oh,
remember,
my goodness.
80% of the time when something goes wrong on the website, nothing's wrong with the website. It has something to do with some kind of user issue or a setting in their computer. No matter how good you are at building a WordPress website, you can't control, if someone has their pop-ups turned off or their browser blocked for something, or, you just don't know. And so you can go in and you can impersonate them on your machine, and you go, well, it's working here. So I'm seeing it as have you tried another browser? Have you tried another machine? And whenever that comes up, it seems like 80% of the time things are fixed just from a change of environment.
I have a question for you, Kurt. a lot of people talk about how there's more traffic on mobile devices now than there are on, desktops or the larger screens. How do we make sure that those are really dialed in?
So there's a couple of different ways to do that, Tim. The first thing to recognize is, and we go back to use case, the first steps of building the project. You want to make sure you have a theme and that you are using a page builder that can be mobile responsive, right? And so that's the phrase you're going to see a lot. So if you use something that's outdated, you might not get that. But if you're on the newest version of WordPress and you're using updated themes, it's going to be mobile responsive right out of the chute.
Okay.
Meaning that whatever size screen I'm on, the content's going to resize to that screen appropriately. Now, the next thing I want to bring to that conversation is that doesn't mean it's always going to be just right. And so when you get into different page builders, I'm an Elementor fan, so I'll tell you how Elementor works. When I'm working in Elementor, there's 3 little buttons at the bottom. One looks like an iMac, right? One looks like a tablet, and one looks like a phone. So I can click on any of those, and it'll give me an instant preview of what I'm going to see in that environment. Now, what's cool about that, and this is where I use it the most, the things that get messed up on websites the most, as far as I'm concerned, is, you know how the new websites have that big hero image at the top, and then they'll have a title right through the middle of that hero image, and it looks great on your computer. And then you look at it on the phone, and you see half a picture, and then you see either really giant text or really tiny text, right? That's because when it was mobile optimized or not for that element, it didn't fit the screen properly. But because of the settings you used as you designed it, that's the way that it worked. In Elementor, I can select the mobile view. I can edit how it's going to look in the mobile view. And then the site picks up on, if I'm on mobile, I'm going to show it this way. And if I'm on computer, I'm going to show it this way. And so I can actually set up different views of the same pages based on product.
Great. Well, it's time to wrap up, Kurt, and we had a nice rapid fire question for you. Ladies and gentlemen, check out bit.ly/book with Kurt. If you want to set up that time, just mention the word giver, and he'll know exactly where you came from and give you a little extra love, a little extra bonus time there to be able to walk through your questions. And Kurt is one of those people that he's not going to hard sell you on anything.
No.
He's going to match you up with the information you need. And if there is an actual need for his services, he will let you know that he's not going to hide it from you. But at the same time, if you can go out and maybe use Codable or something else to kind of get you started, that's great. Like, he wants you to have success. So that's why he's part of the Giver Marketing Network. And that's why we can highly recommend each one of our guests on Tuesdays. Thank you, Christine, for kind of hosting this and getting all this put together, co-hosting and helping out. Joel, thank you for the great questions and the just the insights that you've been able to kind of help guide us on some of the automations in conjunction with what Kurt does. Really appreciate all the nurturing specialists, the branding specialists, the visibility specialists, all the promotional folks in our network, the coaches. Really appreciate everybody. So we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Now, before we go, Christine has one last little way for you to connect with the network, and that is givermarketing.com/networking. Check out givermarketing.com/networking, and that'll get you access to our Wednesday networking time for marketing professionals, right, Christine?
Absolutely. So if you're a marketer, if you know a marketer, send them our way. Let's work together and see how we can help one another.
Yay, great. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. See you next Tuesday or Wednesday if you grab that link.